G'day folks, Damon from Nomad. I want to talk to you about vibration baits and when to use them and how to catch more fish on them. Now we've got 5 different styles of vibration baits across soft and hard versions. Now that's just different families, so take even one of them is a Squidtrex where there's 11 different size options. So when you add up all the different size options and color options across those 5 different styles of baits, there's an incredible variety of vibration baits to choose from. Now the real question is, how do you choose which one is the right one for the certain situation that you're fishing in? So, we cover everything from offshore, deep water. Literally, we've got a vibration bait that you can catch swordfish on, which is this, Squidtrex 220, right down to freshwater bass, lipless vibration baits that work super well in the US and Australia, all over the world, really. Now, what are they? I'm going to start with the Squidtrex. So, this is a really cool vibration bait. We call it a Vibe, Squid Vibe, Squidtrex, that we launched in 23. So this is a vibrating squid lure. Being able to get that vibration with still having the tentacles and everything hanging out the back was quite challenging, but it's resulted in this incredibly effective lure that vibrates when you lift it, and as it sinks, it literally sinks level, and you've got the squid look and feel. So this works incredibly well just sitting dead in the water, but don't get me started on how to fish them just yet. I better run through the range. So next cab off the rank here would be the Vertrex Max and the Vertrex Swim. So side profile, they kind of look similar. Well, they are similar. They're exactly the same in side profile, but front on, incredibly different. I've tried to get a darker version, a lighter version here to show you the difference side by side. What you can see there is the dark Vertrex Max is very thin on the head and a little bit fatter in the belly, and the Vertrex Swim is fatter on the head and much, much narrower in the belly. So completely different designs. This is designed for maximum vibration in pretty much every situation, and the Vertrex Swim actually swims when it sinks. So completely unique. There's no other lipless vibration bait that we're aware of that actually swims when it sinks. Now, before I get into all the details of that and get all excited about telling you how to fish it, the other two, same style, same sort of family, but we've got the Swimtrex and the Swimtrex Max. Now, these are hard baits and they don't feature a tail. So as you saw with the previous two, they had a tail on them and they were made of soft TPE material. Now essentially these are the hard bait version of the 2 previous soft baits I showed you. So the Vertrex Max is essentially a soft version of the Swimtrex Max, and it has a forked tail. Same deal with the Swimtrex. So the Vertrex Swim is essentially a soft TPE version of the Swimtrex, and the Vertrex Swim has a tail on it. Now the real question is, why do we make soft and hard versions in these? And it's really because they do different things. The hard baits feature the auto-tune system. Key differentiation, very difficult to put that system in any sort of soft bait. Might be a challenge for another day, but anyway, the auto-tune system is in the top of the hard baits. Now what that auto-tune system does in these baits is it allows them to run straight because it's a self-centering tow point, but more importantly, it gives them a lot of vibration. So this little Swimtrex Max, I can hands down say you can tie this on and it will give you the most vibration out of any lipless bait you've ever tied on. Just trust me, tie one on, you'll feel it in the first 3 winds. It's incredible, and part of that comes from this auto-tune system. That's exactly what it was designed for, absolute maximum, crazy amount of vibration, and we want that so that at slow speeds you can get fish interested. A slow roll, it's got a lot of motion, just even at slow speed, that gets fish interested. But also what we've found is that even at higher speeds, fishing these over grass beds, because they've got so much vibration, they actually clear through the grass really well. You can run them fast, burn them, they won't blow out, they'll run straight, and they've just got a crazy amount of vibration. So There's 5 really different designs there, and as you can see, the swimming version and the maximum vibration version, that theme kind of carries through, with the, I guess, the bait fish profiles, and that same deeper body design carries through. And you've got the Squidtrex, obviously, which is completely different. Now, just to talk through sizes and I guess size options here, the Squidtrex comes, as I said, there's a giant version, and it goes right down to little, micro-sized baits that you'd use in estuary, or we've even had guys fishing for, for brown trout on these in rivers and doing quite well on them. But there's a huge range of species that you can catch on the Squidtrex. I'm not going to go into species because there's just everything. You imagine anything that eats a squid is going to eat a Squidtrex. That's pretty much as simple as it gets. And even things that didn't know they liked a squid, when they see this thing in the water, they're probably going to eat it. So the way that you fish the Squidtrex is actually quite similar in a lot of ways to how I would fish the Vertrex Max. So I'm going to probably talk about that a little bit to start with, because the Swimtrex and the Vertrex Swim probably in a similar sort of category for how you would fish them. So let's take, and I guess there's also the, obviously the Swimtrex Max is more of a smaller sort of estuary, freshwater oriented lure. So let me talk about the Squidtrex and the Vertrex Max to start with. So similar kind of profile, you'll probably see on the top here, the head profile on these is quite similar. And that's actually because we started I started with the Vertrex Max kind of body design as a template for, a soft plastic that has incredible vibration. That deep belly design, the flat head, the little bit of, fattening out in the belly, these are all things that create a lot of vibration. And we knew that we were going to need a lot of vibration in the body to be able to overcome the resistance of these tentacles. That's the challenge in this sort of stuff, is making sure that the body can vibrate enough to overcome the tentacles actually want to sort of dull down the vibration. So getting that balance right was pretty important. But they've got this flat head design and a slightly widened out body. They both sink very level. So the Vertrex Max and the Squidtrex, level sinking is a key element. Now, the Squidtrex has been designed to be even heavier on a sort of size for size basis than the Vertrex Max. So it'll actually sink faster, even though it's got these tentacles on the back, which will allow you to probably fish it in more current and, even in a little bit deeper water. So how do I fish both of these? Typically in the smaller sizes, which is really what I'm trying to focus on here today, is probably that, inshore estuary freshwater scenario for these vibes. I'm not going to start talking about how to catch, swordfish and whatever on giant vibes offshore. But in this estuary environment, it's a cast and retrieve style of bait. There are times when it's deep water and you might just drop it down, but typically you're casting these and you're retrieving them. So on both the Squidtrex and the Vertrex Max, on a standard vibration cast and retrieve, I'd be casting it out and I'm just hopping it over the bottom. So essentially I wait for it to sink and just lift it off the bottom, and it'll vibrate up and then it'll slowly sink back down. One technique that I'll use, depending on the water depth, is you can either lift it up and actually give it a little bit of line to let it sink faster, or you can wind it up and you can just not give it any line, which means that it's kind of got a, it's got a line resistance as the line's sinking down through the water, and whatever sort of current you've got going on sideways, there's that resistance. So that actually helps to slow down the sink if that's what you want. So keep that in mind, but while it's sinking, it's important that they sink level. So both of these will sink level, and basically you'll get bites a lot of the time on the sink. I would say with these vibration style baits, with vibes in general, it's hard to say overall, but I would say 60% of your bites, if not higher, come either just when you stop it or just as it starts sinking. It's an incredible, don't discount this technique, because you will catch fish obviously just slow rolling these and just winding them in while they're vibrating, but for whatever reason, you know, I've caught so many different species on these all over the world now. Doesn't matter what species it is, doesn't matter if it's freshwater or saltwater, but that the vibration and then the stop and the sort of start to sink down, just incredibly effective across the board. So it doesn't matter what species, just try that. Doesn't really matter what depth of water, but that's the type of presentation you're looking for. Vibration, and I think it attracts the fish's attention. I think, you know, they either see it or they feel it. If the water's a bit murkier, they hear and feel this vibration through their lateral lines, and they're like, oh, what's that? I'm interested, we'll go and have a look. And they sort of start, you know, heading over to where they're feeling this vibration, and then they get closer and they sort of see that there's this erratic vibration, slow sink deal going on, and they see it vibrate, and then it kind of dies and starts, you know, sinking to the bottom. And a lot of the time that's when they'll, you know, they'll grab it for an easy meal. So keep that technique in mind, incredibly effective. Now the other one with the Squidtrex, and this is really exclusive to the Squidtrex, it's got a front toe point that you can see there. So this little 55 has the front toe point. That front toe point's been fitted through the smaller ranges from 55 up to 75. So the front toe point is all about using it essentially as a twitch bait. So it won't vibrate on that front toe point, but what it will do is have a really erratic side to side action. So I would fish this, cast it out, give it a little twitch. When I'm fishing this, I'm kind of channeling like a little mad scad style bait, a little twitch bait where you're casting it and you're going flick, flick, and it's darting side to side. So it's getting this kind of erratic darting motion, and then it just stops and starts slowly wafting down. So you can imagine this in shallow water, 2, 3, 5 foot of water, whatever, cast it out, let it sink down. There's got this natural squid presentation, and then it kind of like darts off, a couple of darts side to side, gets the fish's attention, and then just slowly kind of flutters down and gets hit on the sink very, very consistently. So if you want a different approach to fishing, you know, typically I'd use that in shallow water. That's not really a deep water technique at all. It depends on the size of Squidtrex and the current and all that, but typically that technique is probably gonna top out around maybe 20 feet of water, even for the larger size you'd probably get away with, but typically I'm doing that in, you know, up to 6 or 8 feet of water. Now, I'm going to talk about the Swimtrex and the Vertrex Swim here, because they've got essentially the same profile on the top, the same sort of body design. What's the difference? Why do you want a hard version and a soft version? Well, obviously there's a slightly different profile here. You've got the soft TPE version has got a forked tail design, and the key difference for me is obviously a soft version and a hard version. The hard version has a little rattle. So when this one is swimming on the sink, it's actually making a little clunking noise side to side when it changes direction. You can hear this underwater. It actually goes clunk, 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 and it's just kind of like making this little rattling, knocking noise. And then when you lift it and it vibrates, the internal rattle will also vibrate. So you've got a silent version, which is the soft plastic TPE version, and you've got a much noisier version. Now, it's still not super noisy, you know, in the realm of lipless crankbaits. We've deliberately made this so that it's not a crazy loud vibration, but it's just enough to get some attention, and particularly that knocking noise when it sinks, we've found it's just incredibly effective. Doesn't seem to matter whether it's saltwater species or freshwater species. This has proven just crazy effective. You know, bass fishing in the US, you know, typically you would use this kind of in a ledge fishing scenario. If the fish were hanging mid-water, a little bit clearer water, that swimming action on the sink, the fish just eat it when it's sinking. And that, you know, the vibration and the combination of that, where you're casting it out, let it sink and swim, give it a couple of rips, vibrates, and then it swims again. It just drives the fish crazy a lot of the time. So the one thing to really, I guess, realize with these is that the auto-tune version on the hard bait is absolutely going to give you more swimming action on the sink. and that's a combination of the auto tune and the fact that it hasn't got a tail. The tail does, you know, slightly take away some of the swimming motion, but it also gives you that more realistic profile. So sometimes that is enough to get a bite. And obviously also the super silent version, being the, you know, the swim version, there's no rattles, there's no noise, it's completely soft plastic. The hooks aren't, you know, bouncing against the side. The fish hear nothing. So a lot of the time, if you're in that really kind of clear water situation and it's shallower and you want a really subtle, natural presentation, the Vertrex Swim is just amazing in that sort of situation, because it is a completely natural downward swimming action. Again, it's not, you know, it's a different swimming action to the hard version, and again, that's where it's obviously handy to, you know, to try both in certain situations. But you know, sometimes, particularly in a bit cooler water, the fish maybe don't want quite as much action. And when I say quite as much, I'm probably overly sensitive to this stuff designing it, and I'll look at it, it's like, oh, it's, you know, it's probably a 5 or a 10% difference, which, you know, you're probably not going to notice that much. But you know, when we sort of look at these things in tanks and analyze them, you can see the difference. But that's the reality, and that's why you would fish these two different baits. And I guess where you would fish them is that shallower water, clearer water, in a situation where that downward swimming action is either going to appeal to fish that are sitting on the bottom, or, you know, it could be fish that are hanging in mid-water, schooling fish, and you want something to swim through them, and you give it a couple of rips and kind of pull it through where they're hanging, and it's you know, it's going to trigger that bite reaction with the vibration and then the swimming on the sink. Now, also important to realize with both of these that they're really not designed for a straight retrieve. You can rip them quite fast on a straight retrieve, but the nature of the toe point and the swimming on the sink design really means that the vibration, you just don't get a lot of vibration if you just slow roll them. You really want to give them that kind of like rip, and you'll feel it. You'll feel a little zzz, zzz, you know, the vibration, but it's a very different vibration than you'll get out of a Squidtrex or out of a Vertrex Max. You'll just get far more vibration out of a Vertrex Max than you will out of a Vertrex Swim or a Swimtrex. You'll still feel the vibration, and it's absolutely enough to be triggering bites. And you know, the combination of the swim down and the vibration really does work well. But don't just cast it out and straight wind it and expect to be, you know, catching fish. If that's the technique that you want to use, and it's an incredibly effective technique in a lot of situations, obviously either use the Vertrex Max or use this little guy here, the Swimtrex Max. So this one, as I sort of mentioned earlier, incredible amount of vibration. Just like out of every one of the vibration baits, the Swimtrex Max has absolutely the most vibration, and it comes from the auto-tune toe point and the fact that it doesn't have the tail on it. So if you compare this to obviously the Vertrex Max, same body profile, same side profile. If I get you a little look there, same side profile, you can just see the tail has basically been cut off. So that basically gives you a lot more vibration. It will also give you faster sink rate on this, and it will also allow it to clear through grass. Like I said, in a freshwater scenario, this is just deadly. The little 57 Swimtrex Max, whether it's, you know, largemouth bass or native bass in Australia, amazingly effective bait, and you will feel it the first time you cast it. You just be like, wow, check that out. The vibration's amazing. And you know, when you do wind this, the faster you wind it, the shallower it'll run. So if you did want to run it over really shallow cover as a, you know, a sort of a faster retrieve, you can do that. You can cast it out. You can do the hopping retrieve, kind of rip, let it sink down. It will sink level, and you can really use it in a whole variety of depths. So, I mean, I've fished this quite effectively over 2 foot grass, or even for this size of bait, quite happily fishing it in 30 feet of water if you need to. So you can use this as the same sort of technique for ledge fishing. You can use it in estuaries, in saltwater environments. You can use it, when I've been in the, you know, Everglades with dingo catching fish using this thing, you know, catching snook, one cast, redfish the next. And it really doesn't matter. But you know, these typically have been packaged up as a freshwater bait. So we've got different packaging that we use for the freshwater and the saltwater baits between different countries. So that's in a green packaging, but just keep an eye out for the Swimtrex Max if you want the absolute most vibration and, you know, really, I guess, a more traditional lipless vibe style bait that's just got a crazy amount of vibration. So huge range of options there, and it can be a little overwhelming to figure out which one to use in which situation. But look, as a general rule, look at the color of the water, how much current you're fishing in, and I use that as a starting point. So if I pull up somewhere, nice clear water, very little current, I'm immediately thinking probably go on some sort of swim option here. I'm going to start with something that swims when it sinks. I may go, you know, maybe a small Squidtrex, something like that if I'm in a saltwater situation. You know, not much current, a small Squidtrex that's not too heavy, depending on the species that I'm chasing, that could be an option. But if I was chasing, you know, larger species, a snook or a barramundi or something like that, I'd probably be thinking some sort of a Vertrex Swim or an 80mm Swimtrex in the hard version for that shallow water environment. Again, if you're on the other end of the spectrum and you're fishing somewhere where it's, you know, it's tannin water, or it's a bit murky water, muddy, a little bit of current, a little bit of wind, I'm probably starting to think a Squidtrex or a Vertrex Max or a Swimtrex Max, depending on the situation. If I'm out in an open lake environment, water's a bit churned up, and you know, if I'm fishing in, say, you know, 6 or 8 foot freshwater environment and I really need to kind of attract the fish and get a bite, cover some water, work over weed beds, I'm going the Swimtrex Max. But you know, if I'm trying to fish a deeper water sort of environment, you know, probably a Vertrex Max in maybe a 95 or a 110 would be ideal. It really just depends on the current, but the key thing you want to be able to do, in my opinion, is get that hopping motion, and you know, you're kind of the burn and kill type deal, and just how fast and how aggressively you do that depends on the day and the situation. So whatever current weather conditions, species, just think about that, cast it out, let it sink down, get near the bottom, hop it off the bottom, you know, a couple of hops or just a straight wind, let it sink back down. That technique really works very, very well across the whole range. Obviously, there's a lot of variations that you can use that we've sort of run through there. So anyone that's got any questions about any of this sort of stuff, any of these techniques, how do I catch more fish on certain lures, whether it's trolling or casting, whatever it is, hit us up with your questions. You know, we're running the weekly R&D tackle talk segment here to tell you more about how to catch fish on these lures, how to, you know, what techniques do you use, and trying to, I guess, demystify some of the technology behind it, explain why we've done certain things, why we've designed things certain ways, really just try and give you some more information to get out there, catch more fish, and have more fun. So if you've got any questions, hit us up in the comments or just send us messages, whatever you want to do, let us know. We'd love to help. You can check out, obviously, the full range of products at nomadtackle.com. We've got the Squidtrex, the Vertrex Max, the Vertrex Swim, the Swimtrex, and the Swimtrex Max. Those 5 different baits. A little bit of a tongue twister there, but they're all available on the website. You can check out all the different colors, cover everything from saltwater to freshwater applications, and hopefully there's a color and a size in there that's going to be perfect for what you're doing. So go check it out, hit us up with any questions and comments, and we'll see you next time.